Hey everybody, Backpack Hack here, coming at you with another trailer tip for you preppers out there. As preppers, we generally think of hard goods, tangible things, things we can put our hands on, things we can put in a bucket or a box or a tote, something we can put in a cache, something that we can, it's a physical item, food, water, guns, ammo, medical supplies. We generally think of things like that. However, I want to put you in a situation, hypothetical right now. The world has gone to hell in a handbasket. Communication as we generally know it is gone. There is no internet, there is no cell phone service, there is no email. Heck, even the post office isn't even delivering anymore. Maybe you've got a radio that survived the EMP, and you can contact your people with radios. But other than that, it's pretty much you're writing handwritten letters to communicate with people. Maybe you've got a typewriter, whatever the case may be. But we're back into the 1800s in terms of communication. We've gone back before telegraphs. So how do you communicate between you and the people you know and trust, your tribe, your group, the people that you know and trust? How do you communicate with them if there's a chance that an unfriendly gets a hold of that message and can use it against you for nefarious purposes? So you're thinking encryption. But how many people know how to encrypt a message properly and safely and have it be a good enough encryption that the bad guy is not going to be able to decode it? Yeah, we're probably thinking about the Junior Space Cadet secret decoder rings we all got in the cereal box when we were kids. But the problem with that is a simple substitution cipher that a decoder ring uses is very easy to unravel. In other words, here is a quote: "Success is how high you bounce when you hit the bottom." A simple substitution cipher, like a decoder ring would give you, would be any one of these three encryptions. And if you look at any three of them, you'll see a lot of J's, Z's, X's, Q's, Y's, W's. That's an indication it's a simple substitution cipher. The way it works is, let's put out the simple alphabet A through Z. And if we simply shift each letter once, A becomes B, B becomes C, C becomes D, and on through the alphabet. Or A might become C, that means B becomes D, C becomes E, A might be O, so B is P, A might be J, so B is K, A would be Y, therefore B would be Z. Those are extremely easy to decipher. In other words, here's an encrypted message. Now, if you look at this long enough, you're going to say, well, I see lots of Z's, I see some Q's, I see more M's and other letters that just don't make sense, so this is probably a simple substitution cipher. And if you look at it, you've got a 2-letter word, a 3-letter word, a 9-letter word, 3, 7, 3, 6, 3, 3, 5. Well, wait a minute, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 3-letter words. And if you look at those closely, 3 of them are SGD. So that's a pretty good indication that that's going to be the same word. Now, how many 3-letter words are going to come to mind when you think of common 3-letter words? Not very many. The, and, for, are, but, not, you. Okay, so let's use the letter or the word the to try to decipher this. So if we assume that SGD is really THE, we can say, okay, S is T, is simply moved down the alphabet 1. G moves down the alphabet 1 to H. D moves down the alphabet 1 to E. Well, that's simple then. All we got to do is convert the H to the I, the M to the N, the A to the B, and you go on down that message and you can quickly and easily, within a matter of minutes, decipher it. And that's not what you want when you encrypt a message. Advancing it, it's the same number of letters through the alphabet, is a simple substitution cipher. That's what your secret decoder ring did. And even though we thought we were great when we were trying to hide messages from our parents, it would be very, very easy for them to understand what we were saying because it's very easily cracked. So what we need is a method of encrypting a message that's a bit more secure than a simple substitution cipher. And here's an easy method. Now, I'm not going to say what the name is here because honestly, I don't know how it's pronounced. So I don't want to butcher it. It uses a grid of letters, A through Z across the top and down the left side. Now, normally this is all that is shown when you look this up on the internet. However, I have expanded it to include the digits 0 through 9, simply to make sending numerical digits easier. Each row has the same sequence of letters and numbers, only shifted one letter to the left and beginning the sequence backed around to the right as you progress down the rows. In other words, row 1 is letters A through Z and digits 0 through 9. Row 2 starts with the letter B, goes to the letter Z, letters or numbers 0 through 9, and then ends up with the letter A. Row 3 starts with the letter C, goes to Z, numbers 0 through 9, and then A and B are on the right end. This goes all the way through to row 36. That starts out with the number 9, then the letters A through Z and digits 0 through 8. Now, how does this system work? It's quite simple. Instead of moving each letter the same number of times in the alphabet, we're going to rotate the number of times it moves through the alphabet. We're going to change it every letter. And we're going to do that with a keyword. Now, I'm going to use the word prepper, P-R-E-P-P-E-R. If we shifted those letters 4 times into the alphabet in a simple substitution cipher, we would end up with T-V-I-T-T-I-V. Now, in a larger sentence, that would probably be very easy to figure out. However, with this method, we're going to use a keyword. And the keyword is going to be the first one I just happened to think of when I did this video, and that is the word kitchen. So we're going to put the word kitchen underneath the word prepper, letter for letter. The K under the P, the I under the R, the T under the E. And then we're going to use this chart to encrypt each letter individually. So we'll start with the first letter in our message, the letter P. We go across our chart until we come to the letter K, which is the first letter in our keyword, and we will go up to find the number 5. That number 5 is the first character in our encryption message. We repeat the process with the second letter of our message and keyword. We start with the letter R on the left. We go until we find the letter I, which is the second letter in our keyword, and then we go up to find the number 1. Moving on to the third letter of the message, E. We start on the left, find E. We go to the right until we find the third letter of our keyword, which is T. We go up to find the letter P. We continue to do this with the fourth letter. We start with the letter P, go across until we find the letter C, which is the fourth letter in our keyword, and go up to find the letter X. We start with the next letter, P, which will not come back as a 5 or an X now because we are using the fifth letter in our keyword, which is H. And we go up to find the number 2. We start out with the sixth letter of our message, E. We go across until we find the sixth letter in our keyword, which again is E. We go up to find the letter A. And finally, our last R, which is not going to come out as 1 because instead of using a K, we're going to be using an N. So we start out with R on the left, go across until we find the N, and we go up to find the number 6. So the word prepper is now encrypted as 51PX2A6. And that is how we would send the message, either write it down or send it over the radio. Now to decipher it, we simply do the same thing in reverse. We write out our encrypted message and our keyword underneath it. So we have 51PX2A6, and underneath it is written the word kitchen. Now we start at the top, we look at our number 5, we go down to our first letter in our keyword, which is K, and we read to the left, and it comes out to be the letter P. We start out again with our second letter of our encrypted message, number 1. We go down our chart until we come across the letter I, and then we go left to find the letter R. Our third letter in our encrypted message is a P. We find that on the top. We go down until we find the third letter in our keyword of kitchen, and we go left to find the letter E. Same thing through the rest of the encrypted message. We start out with the X, come down to the letter C, and go left to find the letter P. We start again for the fifth letter of our message, which is 2. We go down until we find the fifth letter for our keyword, H, and we go left until we find the letter P. We do the same thing for the A to the E to find the E, and 6 down to the letter N to find the letter R. Now what's interesting about this is you'll notice that there are only 3 letters in the word prepper, but none of the encrypted letters, characters in the encryption message are repeated. They're all different. So it would be very difficult for somebody to manually decode the word or the encrypted message 51px2a6 to a meaningful word. Now, this is using a hard copy with a piece of paper and a pencil. There are apps for phones and computers, but that method would rely on batteries and electricity and having a working device. This grid can be printed out on one sheet of paper and messages decoded and decoded manually. And the thing is, if you lose the grid, if you remember how it's constructed, you can write one out manually if you needed to. Now, what is the name of this cipher? Well, like I said, I can't pronounce it, to tell you the truth. I've looked it up and there were a lot of different ways to pronounce it, so I'm not even going to try to butcher it. However, I'm going to put an example down below in the description, which is this, Ak61H Ih5Jx Pp27I K4. And the keyword is going to be trampoline. If you want to stop and use this chart to try to decipher the name of this cipher, go ahead and stop the video now and see if you can come up with what the name of this cipher is. I'm also going to give you a chance to solve one on your own. I'm going to give you another example down below that you want to try to decipher it using the word lumberjack. See if you can come up with the correct answer. Couple of things about this. Number one, because I have added the digits 0 through 9, there is a danger of confusing an I with a 1 as well as an O and a 0. So you have to be very, very careful if you're doing this manually with pencil and paper. It's not that big of a deal if you're doing this with a computer or a tablet or a phone, because that's automatic. You're generally just copying and pasting at that point. It's also important that you and the recipient, or you and the sender, must have the same keyword. That has to be agreed upon beforehand. You just can't say, well, I got a message without the keyword. You're stumbling around in the dark. So you have to have that keyword set up. And this is why it's important to do this now. You don't wait until after the grid goes down. You don't wait until after SHTF. You come up with a keyword between you and the recipient or you and the sender. You have a keyword already put in place, because that way when you have to send a coded message, you'll be ready to go. Another important thing about encryption is you destructure the messages into blocks of 5 letters. In other words, you take away the structure of the words. You don't put 3-letter words and then a 2-letter word and then a 5-letter word, then a 9-letter word and then a 4-letter word, then a 7-letter word, because that gives the recipient the possibility of knowing what the word structure is. So generally, messages like this that are encrypted are simply broken down into blocks of 5 letters. That's a standard encryption technique. That gives absolutely no clue as to the structure of the words in the sentence itself. The recipient should be able to restructure the decoded letters into the individual words. Another important thing about the keyword: don't use the same word over and over. Don't just say, I have a keyword, everybody knows it, because if somebody does figure out your keyword, then they figured out all your messages. Have a set of keywords, a list of keywords, and rotate them on a pre-planned basis. The more likely your messages are to be intercepted by unfriendlies, the more often you should be changing your keyword. You may only have to do it once a week, once a month. You might have to do it every day. You might have to do it several times a day, depending on the volume of your messages sent and received. Now, it doesn't have to be anything in particular. You can use normal words. You can use Bible verses, book titles, names of famous people, popular quotes, whatever you want to do. Personally, I prefer to use 10-letter isogram words. Now, an isogram word is a word that does not repeat a letter. In other words, the word prepper is not an isogram word because it repeats the P, it repeats the E, and it repeats the R. Not back to back, but at least there's more than one P, more than one R, and more than one E. I also use 10-letter words simply because when you break your encrypted message down into blocks of 5 letters, having a 10-letter word makes it obvious as you start to write it out if you've made a mistake matching up the encrypted message with your keyword. In other words, like here I'm using just the random letters A, B, C, D, E as an example for an encrypted message. I start writing out BLACK, SMITH, and all of a sudden I forget the B and I start LACK. Wait a minute, this isn't working out because my B should be the first letter in that 5-letter block. That at least alerts me that I know I've made a mistake. But however you want to do it, that's up to you. Another thing about the keyword is if it's not as long as your message, you simply repeat the message. You can see in this example here, A, B, C, D, E. I've got blacksmith, blacksmith, black. You just keep repeating that keyword underneath your encrypted message. This is how you can quickly and easily, well, not quickly, it does take time to encrypt and decrypt these messages, especially without a computer. If you've got an app for your phone and it works, that's fine. But if you're doing this manually with a printed copy and you're doing this with paper and pencil, it can take some time, especially if it's a long message. With all this said, hopefully this has given you an incentive to look into this cipher. And like I say, I won't tell you the name, but if you want to and decode it down below, you can Google that once you're done and learn all about it. I think it was invented back in the 1600s. I'm just going from memory on that. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it's been around a long, long time. And what's interesting is the same principle that this works on was used in the Enigma machines by the German military in World War II. They took it to a whole new level by doing this in multiple levels. However, I think in a grid down situation, just a simple system like this would make it difficult for your enemies to decipher a message that you might have because it isn't as obvious how to decipher it. And yes, they could probably decipher it given enough time. And if they have a computer available, it may not take them long at all. But at least it gives you an added level of security to know that at least if they're going to figure it out, they're going to have to work for it. Finally, I will put an encrypted message in the description below with no clues to the keyword. Let's see if anybody can decipher it without a computer. And if you do figure it out longhand, not only post the message, but how you did it, what it took, and how long it took you. And I'm going to ask that if you do use a computer, simply state that you've broken the code and post just one word that's in the message. So I will know that you have broken the code. That's all I ask. Don't just say, hey, I work for a high-tech security company. We work with encryption all the time. I just brought it to work, and within 5 minutes we had it cracked. No big deal. Here's the message. Because then it doesn't make it any fun for anybody else. With that said, I'm going to wrap up this video. Hopefully this has given you an idea of maybe having this in place and ready to go. So if you have to employ it, you've got it on hand and you can start communicating with your tribe, your group, your trusted friends and relatives after SHTF. This is Backpack Hack coming at you with this trail tip. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share my videos. Be safe out there, and I'll see you out on the trail.